Hello and welcome to Baldwin Woodville High School. We have BW versus Rice Lake today. First with the JV matchup. My name is Jordan Lehman. I'm joined by Jeremy Nygaard here at Black Hawk TV. How you doing, Jeremy?
I am good. How are you?
Good. So, a non-conference matchup for both teams. Rice Lake out of the Big Rivers Conference. They come into today traveling down to BW, 70 or so miles to get some good competition and a rivalry of old. A lot of classic playoff matchups between these two squads, throughout the 2000s. And we've got the JV matchup portion underway now. Looks like Rice Lake's got number 14, Jason Judkins, starting. Number 10, that's Thomas Richter. Number 32, Max Nelson. Number 34, Colton Eggleston. And number 12, Gavin Madsen. And for the Hawks, 10, Jackson Johansson. 30, Maddox Mahoney.
Oh, boy.
And Jackson Johansson with a 3 to start it off. 14, Reese Guthrie. 23, Evan Clausen. And 12, Ryan Veenendahl. So Hawks up 3-0 early on with the big corner 3 by Johansson. And Rice Lake will answer, but we have technical difficulties on the scoreboard.
Yeah, Jackson's not really the 3-ball threat, but and we don't have the clock going. Don't have our typical scoreboard workers.
Yeah, kind of an interesting format. It's still not going. I'm not sure what their solution is. If they've got
I think
they've got the stats.
Well, I think what we probably have going on is the one scoreboard that's projecting is attached to the iPad that Cell's working on, but the scoreboard that's working iPad is the one that they can't get up on the board.
Gotcha. Another corner 3 for Rice Lake. No good on that one. Rice Lake with the obvious length and height advantage. A lot of athletes above 6 foot even for a JV. This is technically the JV. There's JV2 is in the other gym, maybe classically known as the C team. This JV with a handful of juniors, and this is a good Rice Lake squad. They've been competing really well in the Big Rivers. 3-2 overall at the varsity level, 2-2 in conference, and a very, very tough Big Rivers conference that's always competing to represent Divisions 1 and 2 at the state tournament. So good to see Coach Orr and company back in the competitive ranks. I don't know that you've seen. We've had the pleasure of watching quite the athletes come out of Rice Lake over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ellenson boys. Henry was the one that made the NBA, right?
Yes.
Wally ended up with the Gophers. And then, did he end up going professional or overseas?
Yes.
Was that?
Yeah, I think he actually currently is a professional basketball player overseas. Henry, for sure, is somewhere. He was I believe, first-round draft pick by, was it the Pistons?
Yep.
And he was a dominant force at Marquette. A lot of fun to watch. Obviously, with a kid that's, from 65 miles north, it's really cool to see that. Wally was kind of growing up watching high school basketball, seeing Wally fly around the gym, routinely dunking, routinely getting up near the top of the backboard was kind of cool. He was a All-American high jumper at Minnesota, along with Marquette. I believe had some NCAA records at some point. He was an unbelievable athlete.
And his Twitter is the Kangaroo Kid.
Yeah, it makes sense if you ever watched him high jump or play basketball. Pretty amazing. And Elwood also a Division I believe a Division II basketball player, was the middle brother. I believe he was a year older than I was. So 3-3 in the early going of this JV matchup.
Rice Lake also had a kid, and I say kid because I'm old, a sprinter that placed in the Olympics.
Kenny Bednarik, yeah, he's fast.
Is he faster than Ambrose?
Well, it depends on the distance, but I think at some distances, most likely. Yeah, I remember watching Kenny. I was at the state track meet when Kenny was a freshman, and it was like, you know, you've watched a lot of sports. When you see an athlete and it's just kind of hilarious, that was it. It was like, what is he doing here? He is so much faster than everybody, and he's also 15. This doesn't make sense. Oop. But, yeah, Rice Lake produces their fair share of elite, high-level athletes at both the high school level and professional level, which is kind of cool. Not something a lot of schools their size can say.
Not from Rice Lake. There was a kid around my age, up from that area. I'm not sure exactly where he's from, but he was a really good high jumper. And the one year that I did track, he was for the high jump, and I didn't really know all the ins and outs of how that worked, but you'd like have a qualifying jump.
Yeah.
And so his qualifying jump was actually higher than anybody else could jump.
Right.
And so everybody else had their, 3 strikes or whatever, their scratches, and he hadn't jumped yet. So they everything's done. They put up the bar to his qualifying jump, and he makes it. And then everyone kind of looks around because he's won. And he's like, what's the meet record? And so they tell him what the meet record is, and he says, okay, put it up an inch higher. And took 3 swipes at it, and almost made the third, but like the whole thing stopped for us to watch this kid jump.
There's a great YouTube video of Wally Ellenson high jumping at a meet in the cities, where it's just this mass of humanity surrounding the high jump pit, going nuts. As I think he got, he got 7 foot at least that day. It was bizarre, just bizarre athleticism. So we've got some subs for BW. We've got 20 Elijah Heimer, 42. That is Mr. Feedy, Landon Feedy, and Big Tyler Hare, number 33.
Oh, Big Hare's just an earth mover down there.
He's going to work it. He's going to go right hand on the left side. Good finish from the big man. It's good seeing him playing basketball. He had to take a couple of years off for some injuries, but it's good to see him back, enjoying the game that I know he loves.
How tall is he right now?
He's all a 6'5", 6'6". Could be a little bit taller. I don't know. I just kind of always look up and go tall enough.
It was good to see him on the football field.
Oh, yeah. Lost that one. I was going to stay with BW.
Yeah, that junior class is bigger. Between him and Eli and Sean. I mean, I see Evan walking down the halls in the elementary school, and he comes to help, and I'm like, he's a big kid.
Yeah.
And then I see Evan next to Tyler Hare, and I'm like, no, not so much.
Baseline jumper no good from Feedy. So Rice Lake up 7-5. We're about 6 minutes into it. 16-minute halves for JV games.
Cam carrying the house a little bit too late. Now that we have the scoreboard up and running.
Hanson to a mess of Warriors, and he's going to come out of there with free throws. I think he saw that he saw like, I'm outnumbered, let's go.
Yep.
Like that was the kind of the trigger.
Not only did he earn a trip to the free throw line, but he also successfully converted on that third down.
So this week it'll be. There's no NFL on Friday, right?
Correct.
So 5 to 7 days with an NFL game. So was it Monday?
Well, it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then
we'll
have Wednesday and Friday off, and we'll go Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Right.
So I think more than 5 out of 7.
Right.
7 out of 9, maybe. Assuming games all are played as scheduled.
Right. MVS for the Packers and health and safety, or the NFL's equivalent of health and safety protocols.
For now, anyway.
How about the Colts with 7 Pro Bowlers?
Yeah, I told Ambrose just earlier this week I thought they were currently the best team in the NFL.
The Colts?
Yep.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. Carson Wentz has been good enough, but it doesn't matter if you can give the ball to Jonathan Taylor.
And run behind a line that can...
Yeah. No, they're next level good. I don't know if they're the best team in the NFL, but they're very, very good.
It doesn't matter if you're the best team in the NFL on December 23rd.
Nope. Month and a half to see how things shake out. See, Wisconsin picked up George Mason.
Yep. Apparently there's some connections with an assistant coach being a teammate to one of the Badgers coaches in college, and then like basketball ops guy is also a former Wisconsin guy. As soon as they had announced that the game against whoever it was supposed to be against was canceled, I guess George Mason was on the phone right away.
Yeah. Yeah, George Mason, I mean, they just beat Georgia 7-5. A good matchup. I think Mr. Johnny Davis will be back in the lineup.
Badgers had all their players at practice yesterday. I think 2 days in a row. It was the first 2 days of the whole season that they had their whole arsenal available.
Mm-hmm.
Rice Lake just scored there to take a 9-7 lead here, about halfway through half number 1.
A couple starters back in for BW, Maddox Mahoney and Ryan Veenendahl. Jackson Johansson and Clausen will make their first trip to the bench. Corner 3, off to the left.
Heimer's going to tackle somebody. Heimer is going to...
This is when this JV is at its best.
Oh.
Lowering shoulders, going base on the baseline, letting the lettuce flow. Elijah Heimer. He had some, we run quite a few different offensive plays where a guard pulls and kicks out. And when he gets about 7 yards of steam and lowers his shoulder, there's some violent sounds made. Rice Lake kids better watch out. You don't want to get on the other side of that, especially not the ones that I think they've got out there right now.
So my introduction to Elijah Heimer was actually when, like as an athlete, was when he was a 7th grader. I was coaching 8th grade football. And Caleb Heimer was an 8th grader. And we were doing a drill just trying to get kids going a little bit. I don't even remember what exactly the drill was, but it encouraged kids to make contact with each other. And 7th grade goes and gets a break. And instead of going to get a water like he was instructed by his coaches to do, he runs over to the 8th grade group and says, "Let me get in." And I'm like, "No, you're a 7th grader." And then the 8th graders, of course, were like, "Let him in." And he's like, "Yeah, let me in." So, I aim to please.
Yep.
And I thought this was going to go one of two ways. Either the 8th graders are going to take care of the 7th grader, and I'm going to be proven right, like, now walk back and there he is right there.
Elijah Heimer for 3, lets the crowd know.
or he's going to rock the 8th graders, which is only going to be better for us.
Right.
And I don't remember who he went up against, but he definitely did what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And like you said, loud noises. And at that point in time, I'm like, yep, this kid is going to be. And the weird thing was, I don't think any 8th grader was surprised that he did what he did, because he's not overly huge, but he packs a punch.
Yeah, he's a very explosive athlete. Ryan Biedendahl from the free throw line, but that one's worth 2. 4-point lead for the Hawks. 6:30 to go. Thank you for those joining us at Blackhawk TV for this JV matchup. Obviously, after this, we will have a varsity non-conference event between these two squads. We'll preview that matchup a little bit closer to the start of game time, and we'll actually have a different stream, correct?
Yep.
And we'll get into that one a little bit earlier and talk about these two squads respectively. Johansson and Clausen back in for the Hawks. Looks like for the Warriors we've got 32. That's Max Nelson, the junior, back in. Reese Guthrie, who got shaken up 6 or so game minutes ago, walks back in to the bench. Hopefully he's able to go quickly here. Yet to see the Evan Clausen baseline drive and attack the basket. Hopefully we can see that soon.
Yeah, there's certainly an uptick in game speed between 8th grade and what Evan did last year and JV. And
yeah.
I think the speed's going to be an adjustment, obviously, when you make a jump over a level. But I think the bigger adjustment that's going to take more time for Evan, because he moves well. I don't think speed is going to be such a thing. But there you go, Heimer.
Heimer with an and one opportunity, and those at Blackhawk TV are presented by Packman's Concrete. You can contact Nick Pack at packmansconcrete@gmail.com and 612-804-5222 for all your concrete needs.
I think going back to Evan, the adjustment that it's going to take some time is there's going to be hands and arms in places that he's never had them before he's played, because he's always been tall. And there may have been a tall kid or two, but there's an example on both ends. He gets an offensive rebound, which is not anything abnormal.
Yep.
He rises up to shoot. He may have got tapped on the elbow, or may not have missed the shot, but he's not used to people being there.
Yeah.
Then a kid attacks the basket. He jumps up to block the shot, which he's done a number of times, but this kid just happens to be just as tall as he is, doesn't get high enough, commits a foul.
Yeah, and AAU basketball is obviously a really good competition opportunity. I think for those that like to watch, whether it's AAU in person or mixtapes, defense out isn't always a priority.
Right.
So when you play a team, especially a team coached by under the tutelage of Coach Orr, who is infamous for his intensity as a coach and for the intensity at which his teams play defense. Yeah, it's a good year for Evan though, because he's going to be a really nice player here. He has a lot of things that you can't coach, and loves the sport first and foremost. And I think he's gonna take this year, good experience he has, and only use it to build.
Coach Orr's not just intense as a coach. I've talked to him on the phone a number of times. He's intense in conversation.
I mean, he makes toast, and the toast toasts faster.
Yeah.
Like everything, Ledgeheimer.
Like you can feel it through the phone. Like
my favorite. So I have a lot of standout memories from watching high school basketball growing up, and I remember the first time I watched BW play Rice Lake. It was not long after you graduated, probably 4 or 5 years after you graduated. And I just saw, and he's lacking in the hair department. And so I saw this, bald coach that had his head constantly at like a 30-degree tilt up, just like this, yelling the whole game, and I was like, I don't know who that is, but I like that guy.
Yep.
And Coach Benoit on the opposite end, obviously, always kind of had his calmer demeanor that would, ebb and flow. But I mean, yeah, and that Rice Lake team actually, so they played earlier in the year, and then I'm sorry, no, I watched them play a game. Me and my dad would like to go to just regional or good teams in the region, and we watched Rice Lake play. I can't remember who they played, but at their gym, and they had two brothers. Gosh, what was the last name? Started with a C, I think. But anyways, that team actually beat the Altoona team that knocked off Marcus Helen's senior year BW team. So they won the regional final against, was it Shane Manor?
Shane or Drew. What year do you think this was?
Well, this is Marcus Helen's senior year. It was Alex and Dan something for Rice Lake, but they won the regional title over Altoona, the same Altoona team that knocked off Marcus and company.
We'll figure it out. I know who you're talking about. I know the
Yeah. The older one was better. The younger one was very good. But yeah, Coach always been at Rice Lake forever. Their gym too, I think it's had some renovations or updates, but that was such an old, classic high school basketball gym. Rafters and kind of dusky up at the top. It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
So after Altoona beat us 56-54, Rice Lake beats Altoona 73-58.
Yeah.
And Rice Lake does not have stats in.
Baseline jumper, Evan Clausen. 21-14 in the first half. Really impressive showing. I was curious to see how, bigger school, more kids, comes in with their JV in Rice Lake, and BW not only holding their own, but up 7 here with about 4:12 to play in the first half.
So, is it Cooley or Cully?
Cooley.
C-U-L-Y.
I believe it was Cooley.
Dan and Alex?
Yep. Yeah, for those listening, I mean, it's, if you don't always have something to do on weeknights during the winter and you like basketball and you haven't watched a ton of high school basketball, picking out a couple teams in the area that are within 20 to 45 minutes away to go watch, it's really, in my opinion, in my experience, it was never a waste of time. It's so much fun.
I regret not getting Marin to Hopkins when Beckers was there.
Right. Yeah, and it's for $5-6 you can see some super high level basketball players, high level athletes and competitors. I want to get down to, this is a much longer than 45 minutes, but West Salem and GT play coming up here, and GT's got one of the better scorers in the state of Wisconsin.
Sophomore. Cody Schmitz.
And West Salem's got a squad that's loaded with talent. Yeah, Schmitz had what, 61?
Yeah, I think 61 or 63 in his first game.
He's averaging 38. He had 61, but he's also had multiple 30-point. I mean, he's a stud.
Yep.
That conference, for somehow, some way, they always, GT and West Salem's a little bit more up and down, but GT forever has been super tough. They were always, it was Onalaska and Aquinas, Bronson and Matt Thomas would match up, and then it was GET was a part of that mix for a while as well.
You watched Bronson? Did you go to the game when we played Aquinas?
Oh, yeah. I was.
Ryan Wiedendahl for 3 there.
I didn't have a sign, but I was consistently letting Bronson know that Roy Williams didn't like him.
Oh yeah.
Because he hadn't received an offer from North Carolina yet, and JP Tokido had. So JP Tokido was just a trip, man. Seeing him in the highlight tapes, being from Menominee Falls, coming out of nowhere, just like dunking and his head was at the top of the square. It was hilarious. He was such a good athlete.
I mean, I don't think he really came out of nowhere. His dad was an NBA player.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. His stepbrothers, or half-brother, I can't remember exactly, but he's at Menominee Falls right now. He's one of the best players in the state.
Is that Trimble?
So what was his dad's tenure in the NBA like?
I don't want to say anything that's not publicly known, so I'm going to see if it's listed on his former Tokudo's biological father is former NBA player Brian Oliver.
Gotcha. Tyler Hare hustling in to check in. Hawks up 8. 2:28 to play in the first half.
Yeah, Brian Oliver was a third-team Parade All-American in 1986. So I mean, he was ended up playing in the NBA. Tokudo's still playing over for Tel Aviv in the Israel Premier League.
How interesting. You know, our friend of BW Hoops, Ty Katz, has one of his best friends is a professional basketball player overseas. And Ty's told me about how, you know, the ups and downs of that, how it's, you know, it's good money and it's obviously playing ball, but you don't know anybody, and it's just culturally can be kind of weird. How much different is that now with the COVID-19 pandemic? Way different. With different countries having different, I mean, can you come into the country? Can you leave the country? It's just a different world. That's got to be a much different animal when you think about it, which opens up the door to American athletes. You know, the overtime league, obviously the G League, but some of those, you know, lower level professional leagues could start to really pop up if people are like, I don't really want to go to Portugal. I don't want to go to Sweden. I don't want to, you know.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that we're already seeing that. Those opportunities are just, there's less of them, and I think like the G League didn't really happen last year.
Right.
And so, you know, now we've seen kind of the influx of players skipping high school and, you know, then college to join Overtime Elite, to join the G League Ignite. And then I think what we're seeing now is a lot of these guys in the G League are getting called up with these hardship waivers. And so guys that are overseas, if they can get out of it, might be like, hey, there's a chance. But, you know, depending on where you're coming from and what kind of testing teams are going to have to do, it might be 2 weeks by the time the time you can start your 10-day hardship, and by then it's your 10 days are up, you know. Yeah. But like Aleem Ford, he was a first-round pick in the Puerto Rican draft.
Right.
Ended up in the G League, and now he's playing minutes for the Magic. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at Ty Saban's Wikipedia page here.
Oh yeah, he's Catholic Memorial product who it's going to be a block and count the basket for Westlake. He can score at darn near the highest level. Ty Saban can.
He's playing right now in Italy.
I think he was near the top, if not the top of the league in scoring. Whatever league he was in last winter.
Yep. In a season debut, dropped 47.
Which is, for non-basketball fans, a lot.
Right. Averaged 25 a game in the playoffs. Averaged 26 a game, or almost 26 in there.
I believe my JV basketball season, I think I had 47 throughout the season. I had a 9-point second half at Osceola, which, you know, we were down by 5 at halftime. We won by 4. I don't know if that, but
did they? At what point during that 9-point scoring outburst in the second half did they stop the game to drop the banner from the rafters for you?
So what was more interesting was when they finally went, okay, we should probably guard him.
Oh, he banked it in.
From the corner?
Yeah.
Clip that. Hey, we've got a 5-point lead. We've got 10 seconds, so Rice Lake's going to have to hurry up Looks like 32 is going to take it himself. He's
Oh,
going
we
to
got
get
a foul.
fouled, and he's going to go to the free throw line.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he banks it in from the corner. That's quite the achievement.
and it was banked like the top left too. Had the potential to be a really bad miss, but instead it's just a
So
fun make.
we've had a lot of fun watching JV basketball through the last couple of years, and I got a great story because so my sophomore year we've got a JV squad full of juniors, um, and Dylan Helgeson, who for those who know Dylan, I don't know how well you got to know Dylan, but he was hilarious. He is hilarious. He's a great guy. He played three sports. He'd be the first to say that basketball maybe wasn't his best sport. I played tennis with him. I played football with him. But he hadn't really. He's a big guy, post guy, so he never really had breakaway layup opportunities.
Okay.
And I'll never forget. I was like playing like a 3-4 position. He was the 5, and he somehow got a tip layup opportunity, and he's running toward the south basket, and he begins his layup process right about at the 3-point line, and I'm like, subconsciously after playing 10 years of basketball at this point, I'm like, this is not going to end well, and he takes off. So his second step is at the free throw line. He like Michael Jordan spikes the basketball off the backboard. It like ricochets past me. I'm like actively heaving laughing. It was just, but that's the awesome part about JV basketball. Like nobody on that team was a elite basketball player. We all could play, but it was just more about enjoying the process and enjoying each other. That was a lot of fun. The winter, you played a lot of varsity basketball. You played on some really good teams. There's nothing quite like a winter with a basketball team. It takes forever. It can take longer if it's not fun. But you have, the bus rides, the locker room conversations, it's just it's unlike really anything else. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. So Blackhawks lead 27-23 at half. We got 8 minutes 40 seconds left on this timer. We're gonna turn our mics off. We'll be back for half number 2 here in about 6 minutes.
Welcome back to Baldwin Woodville High School. We have a special guest, and we're going to have a Baseline to Baseline podcast special edition here with Baldwin Woodville graduate of 2021, Dylan Carroll, former all-conference basketball player for the Blackhawks, now Rip City Ripon College Red Hawk. How's it going, Dylan?
It's going good, guys.
Okay, let's make sure we can hear you. Put that mic a little bit closer to your mouth.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. So, Dylan,
Yes.
college athletics, college basketball. What's the biggest thing that stuck out to you, positive or negative, I guess, when it comes to your experience so far?
I would have to say strength.
Okay.
It takes a lot of strength to be on the court, to get big rebounds, and just the body people in the post.
Okay.
It's nothing like high school where you can just be behind the guy in the post. You have to front them and get around them to stop them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the main big reason. And then I'd say the pace. The pace is a little bigger than varsity high school, but
Sure. But I mean, your length
yep.
and your ability to shoot the three, those probably still helping you out.
Oh yes. Defense for length is really good for blocking,
Right.
and then steals.
Yeah, for sure.
But then for offense, still can shoot the three very well.
Good.
It works really well in the offense. Pick and roll, popping, diving, all that. So it's great.
Cool. So Coach Kane, he's won a lot of games in Ripon. What's it been like kind of developing that relationship and more importantly taking coaching from such a great basketball mind?
It's tough love. He's gonna get on you when he knows that you can do better, but he's also gonna love you to death, just like a father. And your teammates are also gonna love you like a brother mentality.
Sure.
And so he's gonna push you to your hardest, but he's also gonna give you a lot of acceptance and a gratitude towards playing.
Sure. Do you get to work with former BW Coach Ketz down there?
That's right.
Has that been kind of fun, reuniting and getting that relationship going back again?
Yeah, it's been great talking to him. Got to know some more things about him that I didn't know previously in Baldwin, but I think he's a great guy. He's doing a lot for the community down there.
Yeah. Coach Nygaard, former coach of Dylan Carroll, what do you got for DK?
Well, welcome back first.
Yeah, thank
good.
you.
It's good to see you. How's school going?
It's good. So they don't do normal generals. They do this catalyst thing. So it's mainly 5 things that business owners want from an incoming employee.
Okay.
And so that's what the school works on. So like writing, presentation, speaking, all that.
Okay, so that's basically your whole schedule.
Yep, basically. And then you got some classes that relate to your major.
Okay.
So like business or art or anything like that.
So are you a declared major at this point?
Yeah, I'm doing sports management.
Okay.
I just like business and all that in my major.
So are you doing anything for your major currently?
I'm doing marketing class and then a business management class.
Okay. What does your typical day look like?
So my first class starts around 8, so I wake up around 7. Go to my first class, and then I have like a 2-hour break in between my next class. And then I got my catalyst, which is like an hour after that.
Okay.
And then I got lunch, and then I have practice at 4:30.
And how long does practice go?
About 2 hours, 2.5. Depends on what coach wants.
So is the weight room part of that 2-hour window, or is that after?
So we lift after practice, Mondays and Thursdays usually. So we got our strength lift and then a speed lift. So speed lift is usually before a game, usually, and then our strength is just on Mondays usually.
And that's typical. I mean that's your daily schedule. Get to bed at a decent time then.
Yep.
Right now, your status on the team, are you traveling to all the games? Are you are you on the bench? Because I know you're playing some like reserve games.
Yep.
So how does that work within the whole scheme of the schedule?
So right now I'm playing on the bench, but I go to all the games.
Okay.
And coach has some schedules for reserve games. Some got canceled last weekend, but I get in sometimes on varsity, get some 2 minutes maybe is most, but I try to do whatever I can to get in.
Gotcha. So the offense that you run, and you don't have to go into great detail. Got a little chippy out here.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into great detail about your offense, but compare like similarities or differences, from what you saw, not only what we ran offensively, but what we saw other teams run offensively in high school to what you see, or what the objectives are and how they've changed in college offenses.
So previous years in high school, if a team had a big guy, you'd obviously want to get him in the post. But in college, there's a lot of big guys.
Right.
And so we try to get mismatches. And how we do that is by pick and rolls.
Yep.
It works really well to get mismatches. Bigs on guards and guards on bigs. And we just work it around. And then we attack closeouts. We try to keep the ball moving and try to get them off guard and all that.
So when you, to get these mismatches, is the primary defensive scheme to just switch all screens?
Right now, so some teams do switch.
Okay.
Some teams let their bigs just back off and just play paint.
Okay.
Not let them try to beat you to the paint, but we haven't seen so much of switching. It's
Okay.
more hard hedging and soft hedging.
Gotcha. What you did extremely well in high school, I mean, what you did phenomenally was shot from the perimeter.
Yep.
And erased a lot of your teammates' defensive mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of what we always could count on you for. And then late in the games, get the ball in your hands. So when teams had to foul, we felt like there was an 80% chance every time or better that you were going to make free throws.
Yep.
Do you find yourself, because the way that I envision you kind of being a college basketball player is someone that can offensively hang around in the corners and get, because at the level you play, the three-pointer, it's deeper than high school.
Yep.
Except for in the corners.
That's right.
Right? So the closest three-point shot in college basketball is in the corners. And there's guys that have made livings standing in the corner and making three-pointers.
Yep.
And then being able to be a defender, good enough to be a 3-and-D type. And that's how I always kind of viewed you, but more from a unique defensive perspective, that you could be a weak side defender that can get that you could get to the place where you would impact shots. Has that been your role? I mean, obviously, if you're not playing a ton, it's hard to really say, because you're just getting in.
Yep.
But in those reserve games, is that your role, or do you have a bigger role?
That is my role. I'd say mainly, but there are some times where I'd set the screen, I'd pop to the corner for an easy open three or something like that. But then coach also wants me to get in the post and just do a little turnaround jumper or something, or a fadeaway, anything that helps that strengthens my shooting. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Do you find it being an advantage for you being a left-handed shooter?
Yes, sometimes.
Because I can't imagine there's many of them on your team. Are you the only one?
There's actually one other one.
And so knowing what kids want to do, they usually have a preference of what shoulder they want to attack over when they're backs to the basket.
Right.
You play with Thomas Albrights, and he was a right-handed kid that always wanted to go to his left.
Yep.
But it's a counter move, because defensively you're expecting the kid to try to get back to their dominant hand, and that's, for you, it's the opposite way. Right. So as you progress here through, not just this year but your next couple years, how do you foresee your role kind of evolving at Ripon?
I can see it being a defensive shot blocker who also pushes the court to get to the open shot three. I also see getting some dunks in there as well.
Here we go. We got one yet in the game? Have we got one?
In the varsity reserve game, yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So you had, as a high schooler, you had the first one at Osceola.
Yep.
Which I still have that clip on my, I just cleaned my desktop, so I might have taken it off my desktop, but I did have that clip on my, oh, there it is, right here. You guys at home can't see it, but I keep it on my desktop. And then you had one at, was it Turtle Lake?
Turtle Lake.
That nobody got on camera.
Yep.
And then
Elk Mound.
Elk Mound.
That was a body catcher.
So we're gonna watch it again. We're just gonna reenact this one. You get a steal out here at the top of the key.
Yep.
My favorite part after you dunk is Keegan flexing on the Osceola. That actually cut the lead to 1, and we went on a huge run to win that game.
Yep.
So that was good to relive the dunks in Dylan's life. Jordan, what else you got?
Well, it's so much fun to hear from you, DK. Obviously, when I had the opportunity to coach you as a freshman with your dad when you were on the C team, and seeing you kind of develop your game going forward through the high school ranks, and now being at Ripon, I know being friends with your coach, Coach Katz, Ty. What a good program that is down there.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I'm just super excited for you because Coach Kane, speaking to Ty Ketz from his journey, I mean, he went down there as a baseball recruit.
Yep.
Coach Kane found him and kind of used Ty's strengths to make him, one of the better guards that Ripon's ever had. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you've got a really good attitude from what it sounds. Just taking in as much information as you can. Tripling down on your strengths, and then also tripling down on things to get better at, right? You get tripling down in the weight room, getting stronger, more physical, because that's only going to help you so that, maybe by the time you're junior, senior, you can get down in the paint and not only alter shots, but work for rebounds, things like that, and obviously continue to shoot the ball at a high level. Are there any things, because thinking about shooting, are there any, tips or, little things that you've learned since being at Ripon regarding shooting? Because obviously you've always been a really, really good shooter with a really nice stroke.
Yep.
But are there little things that Coach Katz or Coach Kane or other coaches have tips or tricks they've given you regarding your shooting stroke?
Yeah, just make sure you're eyeing the rim all the time before you shoot it, and then make sure you follow through, because your follow through really helps your shot. It makes the ball go through the hoop.
Right.
And just gain confidence in yourself. That's shooters. As I learned, shooters are going to shoot. And just keep shooting if you're having a bad shooting day. It'll come.
Yeah, absolutely.
You learned that, man? I used to tell you that all the time.
Well, I guess Coach Kane says a lot more.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
and probably louder, too.
And if you've ever heard Coach Kane talk, yeah.
What we were really fortunate, and you got to experience that, was when Ty came. He would talk some shooting things that were new to me. I mean, obviously, the whole art of shooting is evolved over time. But one of the things that really stuck out to me is when he did that shooting camp that first year that he coached, and he talked about having a permanent pivot foot.
Yep.
And it wasn't that it was new from a sense of this is going to change, how I shoot. I mean, I'm older now, I don't really play a lot, but it's always something that I did. I just never realized I did it. But when he starts talking about how, as a right-handed shooter like me, as a left-handed shooter like you, your opposite foot's going to be the foot that you always pivot on.
Yep.
So if you can get that foot down, you're just going to get into your motion quicker. And not that it changed anything, but when it becomes something that you're cognizantly aware of, now all of a sudden it helps get you in that shooting motion. Yeah. Has there been other little adjustments that, or not even adjustments, but things that you talked about the follow through, but other mechanical stuff before you shoot the ball that you've been made more aware of?
Just going straight up.
Straight up.
Yep. Bring the ball straight up. And just that's all I could say, because I realize that sometimes is that if I'm not shooting well, it's because I'm not going straight up and jumping straight up.
Yep.
And so once I understand that, I can see the ball going through the hoop now.
And you've always had a very clean, a very smooth stroke that you know, there's guys that you watch shoot and you're like, I wonder if they'll tinker with that at the next level. I never thought that would ever be anything that anybody would want to do, because when you're shooting as well as you always did,
Yeah.
what's the point of it? So, well, Dylan, thanks for stopping in. We'll let you get on with your.
One quick question. So Dylan, and I think me and you could both agree, you know, you had some stiff competition with Ross.
Yep.
But most of the time you were the best shooter in the gym.
Uh,
At this point in Ripon, how many guys, are there any guys that you're like, they might get me in a three-point competition?
I'd have to say Drew Jorgensen.
Okay.
He's shooting about 43% right now for the three.
Wow, that's really good.
After 10 games.
Sure.
So he's a sharpshooter, I'd say.
Yeah.
He doesn't miss.
But you're near the top. You gotta
I'm near the top.
near the top.
On the roster.
Would you beat Coach Katz?
Maybe. I think he's gotten a little older, so.
Oh, okay. We'll send him that clip.
Yeah.
We'll send him that clip.
But yeah, thanks Dylan for coming on the
guys.
podcast. It's awesome to see you, man. I'll see you around, and keep working, buddy.
Perfect. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Dylan.
So that was DK. Inspector Gadget goes by many names, but the 3-and-D specialist that kind of took over the middle border for BW last year with his ability to alter shots, his ability to make shots. That's really fun catching up with him.
Yeah, home. I think he's home for a week before he has to get back.
And we're about halfway through the the second half, sorry, this JV game. And we've had some fireworks.
Yeah.
We've had some MMA type activity between the two teams. Also, some shots have gone in hoops, but it's fun. We talk in the first half about JV basketball. It comes in all shapes and sizes and styles. And this BW squad all year has preferred the physical type, and that's kind of their strong suit, and it's working. 8-point lead so far.
I mean, does it surprise you though, given what we talked about Heimer and his proclivity to, look for contact, and then Jackson Johansson, very similar in that he wants to be, uncaged. And Rice Lake started the first half. We started the first half. We put Rice Lake in the bonus. I mean, like 6 minutes into the game. So I don't think any of what we're seeing here in half number 2 is surprising.
No.
What becomes hard is officiating is difficult, and then to try to rein in how it's all gonna, to take more control.
Right.
It's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Having only 2 officials on the floor as well, it's not easy, but
Nope.
Good hands there by Clausen. One note to mention, I've been really impressed. Nice take there by Johansson. Really impressed with Mahoney's development as a player. He's a kid that I've coached him in football, and he struggled with injuries, but he really looks like he really enjoys basketball, and his older brother did as well. And it looks like he has kind of an affinity for it as well, some natural gifts that it's fun to see him able to compete out there, and has contributed, obviously, just recently on the last bucket, but it's good to see him doing that.
Yeah, and there's some things that, some intangibles that you can show kids on film but can't really describe them.
Yeah.
And one of those is just that natural movement to find the right spot on the floor.
Right.
And we talked about it. I talked about it a lot last year with Maddie Monacan.
Right.
Where it wasn't that Maddie was the best post player that the girls had. It wasn't that she was the strongest or the most athletically gifted, although she has a lot of those skills. But she just had this knack for kind of sensing where the play was happening and then ending up at a spot where she could get a ball for a layup.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, what we've seen from Maddox in these first game and a half, a little bit more, is that he finds himself in spots to make a positive impact.
Right.
And that's something that you can't teach kids.
Right.
But you hope that you can sometimes show them on film where they're doing it so other people can pick up and try to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having the game slow down, as the saying goes, is a really big deal. And seeing him kind of come into his own, and that's something that I think that we talked about Evan earlier, but I think that's something that we will see because, like you said, the game not only is it going to seem faster, but it literally is faster for him and for players that, like you said, advance not one but 2 levels at a time. And that's a kind of a good conduit to mentioning just how impressive it is when middle school athletes are able to transition to a varsity level player.
Yep.
Like, it has so much more to do. It's more complicated than skill.
Right.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Well,
and to have the mental wherewithal as a 14, 15-year-old to be able to handle that speed adjustment and that change is pretty cool.
And the thing too is, it's not through any fault of their own. It's not like you're a senior who just didn't put the time in. Where it's like, well, I didn't lift, I didn't work on becoming a better athlete. It's the fact that you've never had the chance to compete at that level, and even doing AAU stuff, which a lot of the high level kids do, you still are 99% of the time limited to playing against kids your own age.
And that's why I think the Minnesota does it right. Football's a different story, and I don't know that 7th and 8th graders can play up. The reason I say it's a different story is because when you have 6-year difference in violent collision, it's a different story. But I mean, we one of our favorite players to watch, has been Jalen Suggs, and favorite players to follow, and same with Paige Beckers, right?
Yep.
And to play varsity as a 7th and 8th grader sounds preposterous, sounds crazy, but it happens, and it's not common at all. But when it does happen, not only is it valuable at the time, but who's Jalen playing against right now? He's playing against dudes mostly about 6 years older than him.
Right.
So if you can start that process early, it's only going to help high school athletes. I think it actually is a disservice that more states don't put that into play. I'm sure that there's logistical things that make that more complicated than it seems. But I mean, talking to BW's Coach Benoit 5-6 years ago, he went to see Minnehaha play when Jalen was a freshman, but Jalen had already played 2 years of varsity basketball there at that point. And he told me, he's like, this kid's going to be in the NBA. And a lot of that has to do with not having to play 2 seasons against kids that you really have no business playing against your 7th and 8th grade seasons.
Right, and getting them into, it's not even, it's less so the games, and it's more so the practices.
Yeah.
And I think, we obviously got, in our second year, Keegan and Cam were incoming freshmen that we moved past the C squad right away.
Yeah.
And I don't think that came as a surprise to really anybody in the gym or anybody in the community.
Right.
But had we had the ability to even get them into practices as 8th graders, and they have recently changed that where you can have those kids practice.
Sure.
But the middle school basketball season, aside from traveling ball, is 6 weeks long.
Yeah, super short.
And so it's such a missed opportunity. I think Colin Fritz, who started last year as a freshman, would have really benefited from having a year at JV.
Yes. As an 8th grader.
As an 8th grader.
Yep.
And so
even Evan Clausen, he was pretty tall as an 8th grader as well. I mean, Cal Smith, who's no longer in the program, would have definitely been a kid that, we would have considered coming up and helping us out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it's I don't even know that I've seen it in WIA bulletins as something that people really care about. I think that it's definitely I mean, Minnesota, I'd say the biggest, you could talk to BW's own Dave Ramberg about this, but wrestling might be the biggest sport in regards to that making a huge difference. There's not a ton, but multiple 6-time state champions in Minnesota high school wrestling history.
You know what else it would do though? I mean, we're talking about how it would impact varsity teams and JV teams. It would impact giving all schools the ability to have 3 high school teams.
Yeah.
Or potentially 4.
Yeah.
But I think there's obviously with our girls program, we're trying to get 3 teams out, but with 19 girls, 18 healthy, it makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
And if you could just bring up, there's a couple 8th graders that will be good high school players.
Yeah.
If they could be a part of things, and now you have 21, 22 girls, even if they're playing at the lower level, and the competition might not be a huge step up from 8th grade at that point, but the practices will be better, and you're playing for a full season. Now, how does that impact, your travel seasons and your spring seasons in the middle school? I don't know, but I think you're exactly right about how that would be a benefit to everybody.
Yeah.
And it would be really interesting because there would be people that think it's the best idea when your kid's an 8th grader, and then would think it's the worst idea when that kid becomes a senior.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. But that's and especially with bigger schools, right? Like, there's already BW St. Croix Central, the middle border really at large, is in this kind of middle ground where do you cut, do you not cut?
Right.
Right? Because there's instances like when you were at the helm where we have enough players to easily field 4 teams. Okay, right? And then there's also seasons where, like for our girls program right now, where 3 teams is not a feasible thing without borrowing players from each level.
Right.
And if you have at larger schools where you all of a sudden have 7th and 8th graders able to compete, there's that aspect of if there's some very talented 7th and 8th graders,
right,
more upperclassmen, more high schoolers are going to be cut. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Will there be a 4-point line? Interesting conversation. Will there be a shot clock in Wisconsin? They said that was confirmed for Minnesota, but that's not confirmed for Wisconsin, right?
Correct. It's a done deal in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But it's been a done deal.
Oh yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
It was a done deal for the state of Wisconsin until it wasn't. A handful of years ago.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, California, LaMelo Ball and company. When Chino Hills was going crazy, they had a shot clock in Cali. If you are a fan of basketball,
is this where you plug Sierra Canyon?
To go on YouTube right now and type in Chino Hills versus Mater Dei.
Okay.
And what you're going to get is the #1 result is going to be a Chino Hills team that was the national champion with LaMelo Ball, Lonzo Ball, and LiAngelo Ball. And Big O, they call him.
And his real name is?
Don't know.
Oneke Okongwu.
They go to Mater Dei. Actually, they host Mater Dei. Mater Dei at the time nationally ranked. And what they did to a top 20 team in the country with
good move, Heimer.
I love Heimer.
Put him in the spin cycle.
LaMelo Ball, first of all, looks hilarious because he's 14. He's tiny. LiAngelo and Lonzo at the time. Lonzo was the best player in the country by a lot of prospects, or by a lot of scouts. But really, really fun highlight tape to watch. They trounced Mater Dei in front of a sold-out Chino Hills crowd. Do it. Oh.
Hawks up 5 here, a little bit under 4 minutes left. This JV game that's been full of action.
As they have tended to be this season. Nice help side defense from number 12 there for Rice Lake. So coming up, we've got varsity action between these two squads. Rice Lake Warriors out of the Big Rivers Conference. They're 3-2 overall. They're 2-2 in conference. They've dropped tough losses to really, really good opponents, River Falls and Eau Claire Memorial, who sit 1-2 in the conference right now, but have also had some nice conference wins. They beat Chippewa Falls and Menominee as of late. In BW, it's been up and down. They've taken care of business though against teams that they should take care of business against, and have lost some. To overtime game here against St. Croix Central, lost to a very good Prescott team, and then went on the road a couple nights ago and lost to a very good team in Durand, kind of a rival for the last 20 or so years in Durand. And so it's going to be interesting. A lot of talent in the gym today, not tonight, today. We've got Mr. Tyler Orr. He's a junior coach's son from Rice Lake. He averages nearly 26. His younger brother, a freshman, is going to come in, start for Rice Lake as well. So the brothers Orr, under Coach Orr for Rice Lake, and then BW's got they spread the wealth and they bring a lot of athletes at you. So it's going to be a lot of fun if you're enjoying this game. Hopefully you can stick with us to watch some varsity action. We will stay a little bit more on task and on focus for that, as we call that one during the JV games. We kind of let it hang and see where the conversation takes us. But thanks for joining us at Blackhawk TV. We're closing out this JV game. We got 3:20 to play and a 7-point advantage for BW.
One thing that I am curious about as the JV game concludes and we get into that varsity game, it's really bright outside today. And we have, and you can't see them in the shot, but you can see the bright spots on the floor. You can see the bright spots on the floor, and as that sun comes around here, I would guess around halftime of the varsity game, there's going to be some direct sunlight coming straight into the gym, and how that impacts the floors. I know we did put up some screens or some film over the windows, but it's going to get bright.
Yeah, if you're on the east side or the near side of the screen, or the view that you have on the stream, if you're in the corner or really anywhere on the baseline facing the east or facing that far wall, you do have sun in your eyes. And with the film, I don't think I've seen much of a difference being in this gym at different times of the day. But and that was a big deal 2 years ago. Baldwin Woodville hosted a sectional final, and there was some speculation on what time of the day that should be hosted, because it's a huge disadvantage to be at the North Hoop and really have a whole aspect of the court that's not viable to shoot from.
Right.
That was a crazy day, by the way. For those that have been in the BW gym, it's a big old gym, but seeing that place absolutely packed and hearing, were you there that day?
No, I was watching online.
It was so loud. I've never ever heard this gym that loud. It was so cool. It makes me think of what this gym could be like, as the program grows and hopefully produces some conference contenders and hopefully beyond that. It's quite the place when it's chock full of fans. But
that was actually the day that I decided that Blackhawk TV had to become a thing.
Yeah.
Because it was streamed with the auto camera and the auto scoreboard camera, and you couldn't see anything. Obviously, no one was talking.
Not good.
So I went and I said, "Hey, school, make it happen." And the school said no, and I said, "Fine, I will."
Right, and 2 weeks later, 1 week later, because the girls' tournament got a round in, right? They got a semifinal round and quarterfinal for D1 at the Resch Center.
The first night they played
so they got the Resch Center.
Thursday
they got
night.
one night, and then it was.
Yeah, because it was the sectional.
The beginning of the world as we know it.
The sectional boys.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. St. Croix Central got because St. Croix Central.
Prescott went to Somerset to play St. Croix Central.
Trounced them.
And there was hardly anybody there.
Yep. Central
didn't make a three after hitting all of them against us a couple nights prior.
Yep. I remember. Gosh, yeah. What a time. It's like a blur. I mean, not a blur, but it's just what a strange. Ooh, we got BW grad, River Falls Falcon, Isaiah Randall in the building. River Falls had their best football season. UW River Falls had their best football season in 20 years, over 20 years. Won a bowl game. Isaiah Randall scored some touchdowns for that team. It's really good to see him.
I don't see him.
Corner by Studeman. Bottom corner by Stell.
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah Randall, as a junior, the COVID season was his senior year, and he had some injuries, but as a junior, lit up the middle border with his natural ability to run in zone run schemes, being able to feel out the A-gap, B-gap, C-gap runs. I have yet to be around a back that's better at it at BW. He had some vision and feel that you cannot coach.
Oh, gonna get some free throws here. Coach Ashland has put on his 10,000 steps in just the last 4 minutes.
Yep.
Pacing back and forth.
Yep.
It's not a hot potato, he says. Get the ball, keep the ball.
There are a couple individuals in the gym that I think might want to rival Isaiah's ability in that regard, and that'd be the Veenendals, the brothers Veenendal. Ryan and Dane both very, very good runners of the ball. Ryan Veenendal, number 12, the point guard, might not look, you know, size of the fight in the dog, not the dog in the fight, and Ryan playing against a lot of kids older than him this fall on Friday nights, rushed for a lot of yards, a lot more than people thought maybe.
He had a gear that he got to. Ooh, missed layup there. My take from the top of the booth was that he got to his fastest gear quicker than most do.
Yeah. Big free throws here coming up from Maddox Mahoney.
And Ryan didn't do a lot of his damage from the backfield. He was mostly a motion guy. So when he was taking the ball at full speed, he was just running away from guys. It'll be interesting to see how it changes when he's lined up in the backfield.
Yeah, obviously, you know, BW missed the playoffs this season. Haven't had a lot of underclassmen starting. At one point, I think 7 between sophomores, juniors, and freshmen. But it only
this is smart. This is smart.
Dudes, we're gonna have.
You get 15 seconds. He gets 15 seconds to make a substitution. So he brings his. Brilliant. It's just great coaching. It used to be a minute. Now it's 15 seconds. And so he brings his whole team over. Basically, you get a 15-second timeout, and then he makes a substitution.
But what happened? I don't know what just happened.
The guy fouled out.
Gotcha.
So you get 15 seconds to make a substitution.
Oh, good job. Good job, him.
That time has reduced. It used to be significantly longer, and so that was one of those minor rule changes. And Coach Ashland, who's officiated a number of games, was reminding official Dykehouse, it's 15 seconds. It's 15 seconds.
So Coach Ryan Dockel for the JV. A new Auburn grad. I had the privilege of, he's a very, very good basketball player. I had the privilege of playing with him in open gyms last winter. Really good guy, very, very good player. New Auburn, 1,000-point scorer. Ooh, errant pass, almost intercepted by James Johansson.
So why was he playing open gyms in Baldwin?
Because Baldwin, our open gyms last winter on Wednesday nights would have sometimes 45 dudes. So we were the only gym open.
Makes sense.
We got a minute. We got 7-point lead, and we got a lot of talking.
We got a lot of people that want to foul, and we want to get to our best free throw shooters. Baldwinville not going to shoot. Shouldn't shoot. Should just rotate the ball around. It's a 3-possession game. Jackson, here's what's happened. He got fouled, and then he also earned the lead in next year's musical.
Right.
By that little soccer spin he took.
Absolutely. Artistic nature, you know, genetically. So he's always been one for the flair. Yeah, Jackson's hilarious.
So we get 2 free throws here, 45 seconds left. Now, Coach Ashland, you're talking about where people graduated from. Coach Ashland, Rice Lake grad.
Absolutely. And we've had, speaking of Coach Ryan Dockel, I believe there's a couple Dockels that hang out in the BW school district.
Are they relatives?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I thought that's what you were going, where you were going.
I mean, the infamous JR,
right,
who once had his shoulder pads broken by the infamous Jason Sell.
Is that true?
That's what I've heard from Jason's mouth.
Yeah, Oh, we get an and one, and the
big
clock is
bucket
going to
there
stop.
for 32.
Clock actually ran a couple extra ticks there.
Shout out to Junior Max Nelson, big bucket. That's going to give the Warriors a chance to pull within 2 possessions, and we've got 37.3 seconds, plenty of time to get it some turnovers or foul and get the ball back. It'll be interesting to see what free throws missed, but Rice Lake in a favor of fortune retains possession. And they're gonna see if they can get Nelson off another screen, and that one's gonna go out of bounds. But it'll be interesting to see what the turnout is, you know, for a holiday season noon tip-off, which is not going to be a noon tip-off, which is a noon 20 tip-off.
It's not going to be a noon 20 tip-off. It's not going to be a noon 20 tip-off.
No, it'll be a noon
because
40, noon 45 tip-off.
they're going to have the 15 minutes, yeah.
They got to have
It's
the national anthem.
It's supposed to be a 12:30
right.
tip, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 11
Okay.
or 12:30. I'm pretty sure.
For those of you just joining us, if you're curious, interested, intrigued by high school basketball, middle border conference basketball, at 10 o'clock this morning, Coach Nygaard and I did episode number 2 of Baseline to Baseline, which is a podcast we do highlighting the middle border conference boys and girls hoops. We also have episodes under Western Wisconsin Sports Podcast where we kind of previewed the season. This is the second in-season episode we have where we kind of talk about the lay of the land in the middle border. So if you're curious, our takes, or just want to learn more, maybe a little bit about the way the middle border conference is looking at the moment, make sure to tune into the Blackhawk TV YouTube channel, this channel, to listen to that podcast episode. I'm not sure what just happened.
I think that might have been just the minute horn on the timeout, potentially.
So we're going to get BW with a kind of an awkward inbounding position here. They've got 70 or so feet to go. And Evan Klaus is just going to turn and go with his left, and he's going to get fouled, and he's going to shoot 2.
Yeah, was that a question about whether we wanted the Rice Lake live stream to come into the booth?
They need to film, and they wanted to use the booth. However, this is not a conducive amount of room for that. So a lot of people go right below us here.
Or
film
right across.
Right across. Yeah. Well, you can hang from the rafters. You can. I don't know if drone is in the works. A lot of people film that way.
The understanding that takes not a whole lot of communication is to say, hey, can we get your game film from the camera that's affixed to your wall?
Yeah.
That's how we rolled. Work smarter, not harder.
Do you think that Max Ramberg actually has those 2 grades reserved? Or is it just without saying, these are Max's grades? Because that's where he's been for every home game. And I'm just like...
I don't think it matters, because if someone else is standing there, Max will remove you.
Yeah. Single leg, double leg, full Nelson, whatever it takes.
Probably just a stare.
Or just...
bank, timeout. Makes it 7 with 14 seconds left.
Or just beginning to roll up one or both sleeves.
Yeah, Max will do what Max wants to do. Also, Max is the nicest kid.
Maybe ever. He is a Division II, soon-to-be Division I wrestling program commit to Augustana.
Yep. We talked to him during the BW quad when it was actually not a quad. It was 3 teams, but because one team couldn't come. And so during the matches where we weren't wrestling, Dave actually brought up all of our wrestlers to talk to.
Cool.
And so he had Max on.
And we've got ideas for other podcasts at Blackhawk TV, just getting more attention to high school sports in the area, and BW particularly. There's 3 mods to a lunch.
Yeah.
So sometimes Jordan just thinks, and a podcast called Fourth Mod could be maybe 2-minute bit interviews with high school athletes. The 4th mod of lunch, in their lunch break, whatever it is, taking that and taking some time to talk to them about their particular sport, what's going on, what's happening, maybe around the school, in-depth, behind-the-scenes access to, our high school athletes, called 4th mod.
Do you have a lot of time during your lunchtime to come?
No, but I wouldn't. It's not going to be a daily podcast or even weekly, but seeing just ideas.
Yeah, if you're free.
I tend to work when y'all are sleeping, so I have a lot of free time during the day if I decide to
not sleep,
get up, which unfortunately happens to be quite a bit of the time. 8-point lead, not a ton of time left. Looks like BW is going to get a rebound. They're going to fire it up to Ryan Biedendahl, and he's going to dribble this one out. So 54-46, nice win for the JV Hawks. Next up, 15, 20 minutes or so, we're going to have varsity action between Rice Lake out of the Big Rivers, BW out of the Middle Border. Can't wait to see on another stream on Blackhawk TV.